when we're bringing a big group down to the dune system to plant marram grasses, there's a certain process that really has to be followed. And early spring is a very good time of the year. April is obviously the time where the water is starting to come into the roots of the marram grass, and like if you can get a good lot of plants planted in April, by September those plants should have taken. So basically we bring our group down to a part of the dune system that has a plentiful supply of marram grass, and we never harvest marram grass from the front of the dune system. That obviously will weaken the front if there's a storm. So we harvest from blowouts which are behind the dune system, and when we get perfect grasses like this, we then take grasses that have a good supply of roots attached to them. Now, the top of the plant doesn't really matter that much. Photosynthesis in normal circumstances will happen with sunlight hitting the leaf, and the sugars would go down to the roots. But this really plant is not a healthy plant now because we've cut it. So what we do is we pull the leaves of the plant around like this. So the photosynthesis now happens here, and any sugars that are made by photosynthesis won't go to the tip of the plant, because the tip of the plant now is not free to blow in the wind. So the sugars will make their way down to the roots. Now, so the mechanism of planting the plant now is on the slope of the dune, dig a hole until you get some perches of solid sand, and then we place the roots down quite strongly, as much as we can, and then we pull the sand, totally covering the roots and trying to keep the level so that the slope is continuous and sand won't be, the wind won't catch in the sand. So now we have a plant which is still not rooted in the sand, but has sufficient green material on the leaves for photosynthesis, and then the sugars and starches made from photosynthesis will make their way down to the roots. And after 3 or 4 months, when the roots take, which they normally do, rhizomes will run underneath the sand and create the carpet of roots which underpins every single dune system. And then obviously after 30 or 40 years, that carpet mats together, and then the dune system becomes a stable dune system.
Okay, so the Climate Action Regional Offices are working with the local authorities to help them implement their climate change action plans. And climate change, I suppose, there's two sides of the coin. We need to drive down our emissions on one side to prevent more serious impacts in terms of climate change. And on the other side, we need to adapt to the impacts that climate change is already having and will have in the future. And one of the ways we can do that is by protecting and indeed implementing more nature-based solutions like the dune systems around us. So an event like this is brilliant in terms of bringing the community on board, the support of the local authority on Tashka and other people to show how important the biodiversity as their own natural systems are, that we need to protect them and cherish them, but they're also doing a job in terms of helping to protect us from the impacts of climate change, like sea level rise and extreme winds, extreme storm events.
So the Portmarnock beach is part of the Dublin Bay UNESCO biosphere, and it's one of several hundred sites worldwide for nature conservation. And what UNESCO biospheres are about is they're about people, citizens, taking action to protect their environment and look after it for future generations. So the work that's being done here today by the community is a really good example of people taking action within the biosphere, and it helps part of the global effort that we're all trying to do to protect biodiversity and deal with the biodiversity crisis globally.
So today's event, what we were doing is we were undertaking a marram grass planting workshop in Portmarnock Beach, and Clean Coasts have been doing these activities for the last numerous years, and what it is about is basically we're transplanting marram grass in an area that is populated to an area that is more barren, and that encourages more marram grass to grow, and which marram grass is it's kind of like the glue of these dune systems, and it's so important that we protect these dune systems because there are natural barriers against coastal erosion, And as part of this initiative as well today, what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of raise awareness to the general public that you must kind of stay off these dune systems and protect them going forward.